Hello my friends, welcome to my channel. Happy January, happy 2025, happy new year, all the things. Whew. This is going to be a heavy video, but I'm going to try to get through it as fast as possible. And I'm doing it for a number of reasons. The first one is that January, a lot of people do the dry January where they give up alcohol for the month. The second reason is because when I started this channel, I made a promise to myself that I would bring content that other women, I'm sure, are struggling with. Bring up viewpoints and subjects and topics that aren't really talked about in this platform, especially for women over the age of 50, and particularly women, right? Because I know when I was looking for it, I couldn't find it. And so I wanted to be that source. So I am sharing a very vulnerable story, a very personal story, and I will put out a couple of disclaimers here. Number one, I am not passing judgment or criticism on anyone. I am not telling anyone what to do. The goal of this video is, again, to provide inspiration and motivation that if you too are suffering from some of the symptoms and the signs that I will share, that there's hope, right? That there's a way for you to heal and to come out on the other side of this being a stronger person. Now, if you are a person that has tried a few of the things that I will share and you still can't get any results and you're still suffering from alcoholism, I have to say this disclaimer. I encourage you to seek professional support and professional help, because it is a serious illness. It is a serious sickness, and some of us can heal from it without needing all of that extra help, but others must get it. So if you are one of them, know that I am saying this with all the love and all of the peace that's in my heart, and I'm asking you to seek additional professional support. So when I started this channel in October, there were a lot of topics that I was researching that I could not find other women that looked like me, that were my age group, that talked about the different types of topics. And so sobriety is one of them. It is not an easy subject, but it is where I feel that because I am healthier on the other side of it, that I can speak very confidently about it. Here's another disclaimer I will share, that if you are listening to this video, if you're watching it, and you feel so inclined to leave a comment, I'm just asking that the comment be made with kindness and with compassion and with empathy and with respect. If you feel like you can't leave a comment that falls under any of those categories, I am going to humbly ask that you do not leave a comment, because it will be deleted. That is not the environment or the type of energy that I am welcoming on my channel. And I know that people get keyboard happy and they say things that are very judgmental. And as I said before, I am not here to judge anyone or criticize you or pass judgment on anything that you choose to do. I am here to be a source of encouragement and positivity. So I expect and I hope that you receive it the same way. All right, so let's talk about this sobriety and how I got here. Before I get there though, I need to talk about how it started. And I will say alcohol was something that was around ever since I was a child, right? I come from a very big Puerto Rican family, and alcohol wasn't something that was hidden or it was pulled out or done after the kids went to bed or done behind closed doors. No, it was very normal to have alcohol on the table growing up. It was very normal to have alcohol at every single function, every single gathering. It was a big item on the to-do list for a party. And again, just very normal, very, very normal in our family. And I will say that growing up, the one thing that I did notice right away, my earliest memory of it, I was probably about 5 years old when I realized, wait a minute, what is happening here? These aren't the same people. Because after several hours of alcohol, I noticed that adults would change. They would change how they spoke, how they acted, how they laughed, how they sat, how they walked. I noticed all those differences. And because I come from such a big family and we're all very close in age, all of my cousins and I I am an introvert by nature, so I would be the one in the corner observing everyone and watching everything and not saying a lot. So these are just my observations that I made at a very young age. And oftentimes, not every time, but often, more often than not, the night ended with an argument or with some kind of a fight. And this happened year in and year out, every holiday. Didn't matter, Thanksgiving, Easter, Christmas, Three Kings Day, July 4th, Memorial Day. Like, it didn't matter. It was every gathering, every holiday, something would happen. And it was always because of the alcohol. And growing up, there's four of us. I have three brothers, and I'm the only girl. I'm right in the middle, and I'm third. So growing up, my father believed that, if you wanted to have a drink, I don't want you to do it behind closed doors. I don't want you to be so curious about something that you do it and then it puts you at harm, it puts someone else at risk. That's not what we're doing here. So he told us that if we ever wanted to have a drink, he wanted us to have it in his presence, and that way he can watch us and see how things happen. And he's in control. Him and my mother will be in control. And so I had my first beer with my father and my brothers at 16. My other brothers were 17 and 18. They had been drinking for a year or so by that point. But I was a late bloomer. I had my first beer at 16. In my family, I was a late bloomer. And again, if this isn't something that your family does, no judgment, right? I don't want any judgment on my part, and I don't want you to, have judgment on how our family behaved. But this was normal for us. No one was injured in the process. It was something, again, that was normal. So it wasn't really odd to see my cousins at 17 and 18 years old, Christmas Eve, sitting in a corner sharing beers. Like, it was very normal for us to see. But at 16, I had my first beer, and I can honestly say I didn't like it. But I did like it when I was 18 and 19. And I was drinking quite heavily when I was in my 20s. I was drinking quite a bit. And then I got pregnant very young, and I had my children young. So there was a span of time where I was not drinking at all because I had to be responsible for two human beings. And that was kind of a deterrent for me. And then I hit my 30s, and a lot of life started to happen. At 32, I lost my uncle who lived with us. He was more like a brother. He died at the age of 52. He was 20 years older than me. He died of a sudden heart attack. My brother actually performed CPR, and very traumatizing for my family at 32, for us to lose someone who was such a daily piece of our lives. And then a year and 6 days to his death, my grandmother passed away. My grandmother was my best friend. She was my roommate for the first 15 years of my life. We shared a room and a bed together. And I can honestly say she was my very first best friend. I could tell her anything. And she was just a very strong woman of faith, very resilient and strong. But the death of her baby, because he was the last born. My mother was one of 13, and he was the baby of the family. And when she lost him, she lost her. She lost herself. And a year and 6 days to his death, she had a stroke and passed away. A week after her passing, my father started to show symptoms. Now, okay, let me go back a little bit. In early 2002, my father also suffered a spontaneous brain hemorrhage, and he lost all of his short-term memory. He had 3 brain surgeries. He lost his cognizant skills. He was in the hospital for 4 months, in rehab for 2. So he was in an institution for 6 months, and it was hard. It was hard on our family. But we had started to make progress with physical therapy, and he was really coming along. And then a week after my grandmother passed away, we had noticed some signs of regression, and we thought, oh my God, is the shunt in his brain and his head not functioning properly? We rushed him to the hospital, They ran a bunch of tests on him, and they said, we have one last test to rule out because his hemoglobin was really low. He was losing blood, but they couldn't figure out why. They kind of just wanted to address the bleeding of the brain first and did all of the testing for that to rule that out. And so the colonoscopy was the last thing they were going to do. And he had a colonoscopy at 7 in the morning. By 9:30, we were told that he had a massive tumor, that he had stage 4 colon cancer. They could tell right away, and he needed immediate emergency surgery. So fast forward, that was in September of 2003, and my father passed away in May of 2006. So a little bit over 2 years, he dealt with the cancer, and he succumbed to colon cancer and died on May 16th. And all three of those deaths back to back really did some damage to me. It affected me more than I ever thought, primarily because I never had an opportunity to mourn any of their deaths, because when my uncle passed away, my grandmother became all of our immediate priority. My brothers and I planned my uncle's funeral. Although I come from a big family, we all know that there's those few selective ones that are chosen to kind of, carry the burden of the family on their shoulders. And it's always my brothers and I, for whatever reason. And we gladly did that because he was like a brother to us. And then my grandmother passed away. The burden was put on our shoulders again, and I'm not complaining at all. We feel very honored and blessed to have had that, but it didn't allow me time to process and grieve. And then my father passed away, and that came with its own level of responsibilities and decisions and things to handle for my mother, who really had no grips or any kind of handling of any of their finances. It was just a big learning curve for all of us, especially my mom, to be here without my dad. And she had been with him since she was 14 years old. So 3/4 of her life was spent with him, and it was a big change for her. So being present and being, a responsible daughter, I guess, is where my head went to. My father passed away in May. We moved into this house that we're living in right now a month later. So we uprooted our children. We moved them away from everything that they knew. The family, my mother lived next door to me, and helping them cope and helping them heal as well, and grieve deeply, because they were so close to my father. And seeing my mother hurt and seeing me hurt them. So it was just a really hard time for all of us. And that's when alcohol really stepped in. That's when I really started to not just drink alcohol, but to depend on it for healing, for numbing, for coping, for making me forget. Because if it put me out, I couldn't think anymore. And I thought that was helping me. Years continue, and the alcohol just continues to increase as well, to the point where I looked forward to Fridays, because on Fridays I could leave work, I could do my groceries. Right across the street was the liquor store, and every Friday I would go buy 10 to 12 bottles of wine every Friday. And by Thursday we had none, because to numb the pain and to deal with the loss and the grieving and all of that, I did what I thought was normal, and I would have a glass of wine, because what's wrong with a glass of wine at dinner every night? But the difference is that the glasses of wine at home are very different than the glasses of wine at a restaurant. The glasses of wine at a restaurant are actually measured, right? There's 6 or 9 ounces. At home, depending on the size of your glass, it can be anywhere from 12 to 16 ounces. And so I would fill up my glass, and I would have 2 of those at night. But the 2 soon became 3. And the 1 bottle of wine quickly became 2 bottles of wine. But here's how I tried to make it okay in my own brain was because I was sharing the bottles with my husband. I wasn't drinking them all myself. So it's okay. It's okay. I wasn't drinking them by myself. So why not open up the third bottle? But the harder part was that my husband's absorption and tolerance of the wine was very different than mine. It affected me a lot quicker than it did him. And so that to me really was was an issue because I would get severe hangovers. Every day I woke up, I was foggy throughout the day. My reflexes were off. I couldn't think as straight at work. I could not process things as quickly. I was just in a fog, constantly in a fog. And then the wine was not enough. But here's where it really changed for me, because I went from drinking wine with my husband, then waiting for him to take a shower or wait for him to go into his studio in the basement, for me then to have a shot because the wine wasn't enough. And why was that a problem? Because never in my life was I the one that ever took shots. So when we would have family gatherings or any kind of party where there was alcohol, everyone would get around the table and let's do a shot, right? Everyone would do a shot. I was the only one that did not do a shot. And when I started to do shots, I just felt like I can't have another glass of wine because he's going to know that I opened that other bottle. I'm just going to have a shot. He's not going to know. Well, it wasn't until the day that he wanted to actually drink the Cafe Patron, drink that neat in a glass, and there was hardly any more Cafe Patron. He immediately thought that the girls were drinking. And rightfully so, because I never had shots, right? But then I had to tell him, no, it's not the girls. It's me. I'm the one drinking the shots. He's like, what? Well, look at you having shots, right? Because it was all new to him too. He was really trying to help me deal and cope with all the things. Having a very stressful job, having teenage daughters that now have boyfriends at home, dealing with the 3 losses, selling our old house, moving into this house, right? There was just so much change so fast. And I was just trying to just deal with it, right? I was pushing everything down and just trying to stay afloat, trying to be there for my daughters, being there for my mom, making sure she was okay, financially, mentally, emotionally. And I was worried about everyone else but me. And how I helped me, how I dealt with me was by drinking. And then 2017, it was early 2017, and I had some coworkers that came from another country. I took one of them out to dinner. We had some pizza and a salad, and we polished 3 bottles of wine. And I say that it was the pivotal moment in my life because I don't remember how I got home. It was so pivotal that it was only through God's grace and his divine intervention and a miracle that he had his hands all over that I even made it home. That I did not get into an accident, where I did not get pulled over, and I did not kill someone. I had no business driving. I had no business being on that road that night. I made it home, pulled into the garage, stumbled all the way up the stairs. My husband heard me stumble, did not get up out of bed. Because by this time, he knew that I had a problem. He knew that there was something a little bit more serious going on here. He let me stumble. I went into the bathroom, and I don't remember that night, but I do remember when I woke up a few hours later. So I was still drunk, but I had to go to work and I was still drunk. I got up, I stumbled out of the bed into the bathroom, and I saw something that even till today, in the pit of my stomach, I feel embarrassment. Pure embarrassment, because I had had so much wine that I had whatever I threw up in terms of food had already come out of my system. But now what I saw in the bathroom were just splatters of wine all over. So it was all over my sink. And because I had an oval sink at the time, when I would throw up the liquid, it just splattered outwards. So it was on my walls, it was all over my counter, in my sink, it was in the toilet, on the toilet, around the toilet, on the wall behind the toilet. It was in the shower. It was, red wine was everywhere. And I took out my Clorox wipes, cleaned everything up, hoping that my husband didn't see it. Went to work and realized, crap, I don't have my phones, because I had a personal and a work phone. But I'm not calling my husband to ask him. And here's what I know now, though, and it hurts me. This is the part that I have probably the hardest time with, just in my healing, because I'm still healing. And I shared this with my therapist as well. Because as a mom, right, I pride myself in being that person that shields them and takes care of them, and is a role model, right? It's an example. And I had lost complete control of myself during this period. But I couldn't be a present mom for them. And they were also suffering. They were also struggling. They had boyfriend problems. They were going through college. College was hard. There were so many things that were happening in their lives that I could not be present for, because I was too drunk to do that. And even with all of that, and here's the part that hurts me, even with all of that, they showed me so much grace and so much love and so much patience, because they knew that I was suffering. They knew that I was hurting. And they didn't know how to help me. They didn't know what to do. But every time I had a hangover, they took care of me. Every time I came home drunk, they would help me. They would help me get dressed. They would help me get into bed. And this is by far the hardest part of my healing. But I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So that was 2017. And we all know that in 2018, at the end of 2018, I got laid off, which had nothing to do with me drinking. It was all a business decision. My position was outsourced. Had nothing, because I never drank on the job. I never went out for lunch and had alcohol. My drinking happened at home at night, or if my husband and I went out to dinner. So my drinking never happened while I was working. I need to also put out that disclaimer. I was a responsible employee. And then the other pivotal, so I had 3 pivotal moments in my alcohol journey. And the first one was that night that I went out with a coworker, and I blacked out. The second one was because I had transitioned from wine to now drinking Tito's and Club, because the wine was giving me migraines. And I felt, this is all part of what alcoholics do. They rationalize why they can't drink something and why they're not alcoholics. Because if I was an alcoholic, I wouldn't have been able to switch from wine to this, right? Because alcoholics drink the same thing, supposedly. This is all how we rationalize with ourselves. So I went from wine to drinking Tito's and Club, and I would ask the bartenders, even if I made it at home, to add extra lime, because if I tasted the lime juice, it reminded me that there was alcohol in there, because otherwise it tastes like nothing. But here was the problem with mixed drinks, the vodka. The vodka had a different effect on me. It would actually make me black out. And there was an event that we had. We had some party here at my house. Everyone had left. My husband and I, we had our last glass of Tito's and Club, and I blacked out. because I woke up and I don't remember getting into bed. I don't remember coming upstairs, none of that. And it was my daughters and my husband that helped my husband my daughters helped my husband get the contact out of my eyes and get me out of my clothes, put me in my new clothes, my pajamas, but I don't remember any of it. And then the third pivotal moment was my husband and I had gone out to dinner. We decided to go somewhere else afterwards, and he didn't want to, but I insisted. So we went, and he opened the door for me, and he asked me something, and I slurred my words. And he looked dead in my eyes and said, "I hate it when you get this drunk. I hate it." And I kept telling, "No, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine," knowing I wasn't. And we went inside and blacked out again. And so those are the three. I think there were, there were a lot. I could say five, but I don't want to make this video end tomorrow. So I'm trying to shorten this up. But, those were the three pivotal moments in my life. And when I lost my job, I was drinking every day, all day. And by all day, I mean, I slept until about noontime or 1 o'clock. And so I would have breakfast, if I even had breakfast, or my breakfast would be like a mimosa or something. I would always have an alcoholic beverage for breakfast. And then I would just drink all day, all night. To the point where my daughters and my husband had an intervention. I shared this in the video where I talked about when I got laid off when I was 48 and how I leaned into alcohol, amongst other things, to help me heal and help me deal and help me cope. And so I made a promise to them that I was not going to drink another ounce of alcohol as of November 9th because I was starting a health and fitness journey. I made a promise to them that if I wanted to have a drink during those 21 days or anywhere thereafter, that I would definitely go to AA. But I did agree with them on half of their intervention, which was for me to get therapy. And so I started to see a therapist and I started my health and fitness journey. And I will say that I have not had a single ounce of alcohol since November 10th of 2019. And I know that not everyone can stop cold turkey. I know that not everyone can do what I did. I understand that. And that's why I started this video by telling you that if you feel like you can't, I highly encourage you to seek professional help. It worked for me. My type of personality, my type of self accountability, it allowed me to, be able to do that, to be able to turn the switch and stop cold turkey. But not everyone can do that. And so that is my story. That is my sobriety story, where I went from literally drinking every single day. From about the age of 37, I started drinking 1 glass of wine a day, every day, 7 days a week. And that progressed over the years to 2 glasses a day, 3 glasses, 3 bottles, right? It just got progressively worse. And then I started doing shots and then mixed drinks with shots. And blacking out was a very scary thing for me to go through, where I don't remember anyone, anything beyond a certain point of that day or that night. And that literally scared the living crap out of me. I knew that I had to make a change. I knew that I needed to do something to reverse this because alcoholism does run in my family. And I started to become that mean drunk. I started to become that person that I did not like seeing when I was that 5-year-old girl in the corner, observing my aunts and my uncles. I became that person and I hated it. I did not like it. And I knew that I needed to change. And so with a lot of prayer, a lot of support from my husband and my daughters, and I know it is not lost on me that a lot of people don't have that support system. And they are going through this, or they have gone through it without that support system. And I applaud you. And kudos to you, honestly. You know, for me, I can only share my perspective, my story, and my sobriety journey. And everyone is unique. Every story is your own, and I'm not here to pass judgment. But if you find yourself in a situation or in an environment that does not support you to be sober, I encourage you to change your surroundings, your people, because you need people that are going to help you heal and are going to help you get better. And we all drink for different reasons. You know, we some people drink because they like it. You know, other people drink to cope. Other people drink because that is their vice. That is their coping mechanism, which was my case. Um, Everyone is different. And it doesn't help that society, in specific for women, make it so normal and so easy for us to drink, because everything is girls' night out. Everything is flashy and pink and pretty, enticing, right? The marketing behind alcoholism for women is brilliant. It is brilliant because they make it easy for us to be in that environment. Um, and I'm just here to tell you that there are a group of us that don't drink, and we still go out and we still party, and I still have a wonderful time. And what makes me feel even better is that I no longer suffer from hangovers. I no longer suffer from migraines. I no longer suffer from blackouts. That I go to an event and I am present. I am there. I am physically present. I remember everything. I remember everyone. I remember all the conversations. And that to me is the biggest gift that I could have given to myself. So I wish you much success. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And until the next one, adios.